Well, good afternoon. This is Ian R. Crane. It's shortly after 4 o'clock on to give his evidence, barrister. But then the cross-examination, which is being led by Gillian Jones of Red Lion Chambers, got underway. Said that cross-examination is never a pleasant experience, and of course the role of cross-examination is to try and trip up the witness, to get them to inadvertently effectively contradict the evidence that they have given when under the guidance of their own representation. So I have to say that it's not a pleasant experience for David, or really for anybody that is sitting in the gallery watching him have to go through this. But my sense is that she could be even more brutal. But I think that she has actually acknowledged that this is a matter of enormous public interest. Perfect timing, the street cleaning. Anyway, it's a matter of enormous public interest, and that pretty much everybody in the public gallery is there to support. And the efficacy claims that David has made GCMAF certainly have not been challenged by the prosecution. The issue is whether or not David knowingly manufactured and distributed an unlicensed medicine. And one might argue that that would seem relatively straightforward, and that's why he's pleaded guilty. But the judge has acknowledged that there is some considerable complexity to this. And interestingly, the judge made the observation this morning that regardless of the morality of the situation, that's not what is being questioned here. This is not a court of morality, it's a court of law. And as David has pointed out on numerous occasions, then it is fact that the pharmaceutical industry has effectively built a regulatory control mechanism which prevents any product ever coming to market which challenges their monopoly. So this is certainly getting very interesting right now, and things got a little warmed up when a witness was called to the stand immediately after lunch, and unfortunately it seems that she was only available for a brief period today, and so she was called to give evidence on the basis of her first-hand experience with GCMAF. And this is the evidence offered by a lady who is a counselling psychologist. And her evidence was that she was diagnosed with ME, which is, I'm sure most are aware, is extremely debilitating. Although she endured this condition from 2004 onwards, in 2011 and 12, she was actually also diagnosed with Lyme disease and a serious, and the primary symptom of this is extreme. It's just extremely debilitating, and basically one doesn't have the will to get out of bed, let alone even live. Anyway, she heard about GCMAF in 2012 and sought more information about GCMAF, and made contact with David Noakes, and he went to Chester to discuss the benefits of GCMAF with the Chester ME self-help group. And after listening to David and then doing her own research, she decided that it would be appropriate to take a course of GCMAF. And after taking GCMAF for the first time, she said that for the first couple of days she didn't really feel any different, but then she realized that things started to improve, and she took GCMAF over a period, in fact it was one dose of GCMAF a week for 5 months, which she said led to a very significant improvement in her health. And in response to a specific question by the judge, she said GCMAF led to a step change for the better. And she said that she had sought advice from the allopathic medical community, and the response from them was that the likelihood was that if she took GCMAF, it wouldn't do her any harm. Well, she was obviously questioned during this time, and she stated that she wasn't. So, it was her determination that GCMAF had in fact been the miracle product that she was seeking. And whilst she acknowledged that she wasn't necessarily at 100%, but that she is certainly a lot better than she was 5-6 years ago. So after having given her evidence, she also made the observation that a number of other people within the Chester self-help group were taking GCMAF, and she estimated that those that got significant benefit from it was something in the region of about 65% of those taking it. So that unfortunately seems to be the only first-hand witness that we're likely to hear from. And after she had been released from the dock, then David once again took the stand to continue the cross-examination. And, part of this as well was whether or not David's motivation was purely altruistic or whether it was driven by greed. And much was made about the aeroplanes that had been acquired by his company, Immunobiotech, which he responded to was second-hand, and because they were based on Guernsey, and it gave them the flexibility and the freedom to be able to get to wherever they needed to go to, either to meet potential clients or to take employees and doctors to various conferences. So, he was put under some scrutiny, but of course the accounts weren't in a format that he'd recognized. They weren't the annual accounts of the company. They were simply headlined by the Crown Prosecution Service. So the numbers at face value seemed quite significant. So the Crown Prosecution were trying to but actually his motivation was financial, and he wanted to live high on the hog. But when you compare this with the compensation package of Emma Walmsley, who's the chief executive of GlaxoSmithKline, and she netted 6.8 million in her first year. Well, that's about the total revenue achieved by Immunobiotech over their period of operation from 2011 right through until the MHRA effectively shut them down by raiding their premises, freezing them. Yeah, I doubt very much that Emma Walmsley has to go through such cross-examination, despite the fact that GlaxoSmithKline, with some of their products, are guilty of far more malpractice than that of David Noakes and Immunobiotech. So, this case, as I've alluded to in previous broadcasts, is very, very significant, because what is very, very clear from proceedings so far is that the MHRA and the other regulatory bodies are primarily in place to protect the revenue streams of Big Pharma. They are not there to take care of the primary interests of the health and well-being of the wider public. Now, whilst I would certainly acknowledge the need for some kind of regulatory control, it is got to the point now where its only purpose is to protect the revenue stream of Big Pharma. And of course, it's 9 years, which effectively prevents anybody from suggesting that there's any possible means of treating cancer with anything other than chemo and radiotherapy. So the cat is not being challenged here. The only issue is whether or not David knowingly manufactured and distributed a product that to be unlicensed. So this is an administrative detail. It's one that the pharmaceutical industry is desperate to use as a block to ever coming to the wider market, because then they would lose out on the 150-odd thousand or whatever it is average revenue that they get for every single cancer sufferer that agrees to subject themselves to chemo or radiotherapy, with a survival rate of just 2.3%. So the case continues tomorrow. David goes back into the dock to endure further cross-examination, and the judge has already made the observation that because of the complexity and the fact that this case actually relates to other cases, other people who are working with David and their cases, some of which have yet to be heard, then the judge will defer sentencing until sometime next. The case is certainly going to continue through tomorrow, possibly even into Friday, with then sentencing at some point, possibly next week. Meanwhile, the opportunity to get GC-MAF into the wider vocabulary and to encourage people research into the efficacy of, start asking the questions, because of course GC-MAF isn't the only product that the MHRA and the other regulatory bodies who effectively are in the thrall of the pharmaceutical industry out of the public domain. So the cat is out of the bag. It's now down to each and every one of us to try to raise this awareness on a much, much wider basis. And if anyone thinks that the lamestream media are going to do that, then think again, because from what I've heard, I must confess I haven't seen the BBC reports on the case yet, but I'm told that there are some available. Told about them. It seems that the reporter who's sitting directly in front of me in the court must actually be listening to a completely different case, because his comprehension of what is occurring in the court seems to be very, very different from mine. So anyway, thanks again. I seem to have a bit of a live audience here, but thank you to all the people who have come down to support David. There was a full public gallery, one, isn't there? A full public gallery in support of David, and there's no question that when there is a full public gallery in the court is very, very different, and that is essential for the process over the next couple of days as well. So if you haven't been able to get down here, then do come and say David is very much under the microscope at the moment with the cross-examination, and that will continue through tomorrow. So I know that he's extremely appreciative of all those the effort. We had people down from Carlisle today, would you believe? He's really appreciative of all the effort that people have made to offer him that support. And I know there's many people watching this who would be here if they could. But meanwhile, any opportunity you have to share this and get this message out and encourage those who are able to be here over the next couple of days to be here, then it's really very much appreciated. So you have a good evening, and I will be back at 8:30 tomorrow morning for a brief live stream. I must confess this commuting lark is not something that I'm particularly enjoying, but hey, I think I can put up with another couple of days of it. So I will catch you tomorrow morning at 8:30.